Hello and welcome in my little corner of the internet. I'm as always your host Astrid from Little Dollhouse, and if you want to know more about me, there are links in the description box down below. Under this video you will see a little arrow, and if you click that open you can see all the links that lead to my Facebook page, to my Instagram page and to my Etsy store. Today I want to show you how I work with my handmade wefts. Nowadays I do it a little bit differently than when a couple of years ago, and that's just because I like to try different things and see whether they work for me. And in this case I found that this way works for me better. Now I use, of course, a homemade weft. This is a color that I don't want to sell because I don't like it, but it is perfect to show you. I have a head that is normally for a hand doll, but in this case it will do as an example for how I make the wig for this doll. And I use sock yarn that is a bit of the color as the weft is. Now I use wool sock yarn, and why? Because when it is all done and I still don't like the color of the wig, or I want to change it, then it is still able, the complete wig, I can still dye it. When I use acrylics and I'm going to dye it, then it won't hold up to the high temperature I need to dye. Acrylic will melt. So that's why I use a sock yarn of 100% wool. And I like the fingering weight of this yarn. It's just enough. If it was bulkier, I would have problems in crocheting this wig. Now I start with making chains, chains, and I will form this into a circle after I've measured this around the head. Of course, I measure from here all around here until I am back on the surface again. Then I'm going to close this circle with a slip knot. So this was the end. I've inserted my hook in the beginning and I'm going to close it with a slip knot. Now it's closed. And just pull tight. And then at first I'm not using my weft in this stage. I'm going to make single crochets. A single crochets for me is insert the hook in the first chain and just pull one loop through and pull two through both. So insert in the chain, pull one loop through and pull through both. And I will do that all around and then move on. So after I closed my loop and I made single crochets in every and each one of them, then I'm going to add my weft. And I add my weft with the wrong side, and the wrong side you can see because there is that folded over fiber. The wrong side to the sock wool, so not in front of me, and the right side in front of me, and I lay it against my circle of sock wool. Okay. Of course, I begin at the beginning. The beginning is always a little bit fiddly, but you will get to it. Then I'm going to use single crochets again, but in between every single crochet I chain one, because I get under that stitch line, the complete stitch line. Don't worry, it will be fine. I skip one single crochet and I will match it up with the next one, because I want that weft to lay flat to the first circles of single crochets, and because this is very thick, you have to skip one, but you still have to have enough room so that it won't increase in this stage. So that's how I go all around. I skip one, take the next one, and just make a big single crochet, and as you can see, it lays flat. That's what we're looking for. This lays flat together, and I do that all the way around. You may even notice that skipping one isn't enough. If you are in a very dense curl, like I am now, and I lay that circle flat against it, I can see that I have to insert here, and that leaves 2 skipped single crochets, and that is just fine, because what you want is a flat circle without any bobbling. So if you have to skip 2, no problem, just go on and skip whatever you need. That was out of camera. Skip whatever you need. So I insert it here, I lay it flat, so I can see I have to insert here, and in this case it is just 1 skipped, well, again 2 skipped. Normally I won't even check how many I skipped. I wouldn't recommend to skip more than 2, because that way you will be in danger of increasing without noticing, and then your wig is going to be too tight. So 1 or 2 is what I usually feel that I need to do. Now it's 1. Okay, so there is no recipe of how many single crochets, because every head is different, and it is a wig made to the head. So it fits the head you have made. So after I finish the first row with the sock yarn together with the weft, I pin it in place, but as you can see, it is not quite in place. It is lower than where the hairline is going to be, and you will see later on why I did that. So now it's in place, pinned, secured all the way around, so I can work on it, because from now on we are going to make the stitches whilst the wig is on her head. A little thread, cut it off, okay. And we're going to make it completely fitting to the head you made. I've got my sock yarn over here, and I've got my weft over here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to chain always 1 in between. That stays the same. You chain 1. Then you take your yarn around your crochet hook. You're going to insert it in your weft like you did before, underneath the stitch line, and you're going to place your crochet hook wherever it wants to go. So I'm not counting how many stitches there are on the weft, how many I'm skipping. I'm making sure that my crochet hook is in an angle like this, and I'm going to pick up whatever stitch is underneath there. Take the yarn, and this is always a bit fiddly. Get it through the first 2 layers, and of course now it's going more difficult than I'm used to, so do it again. Okay, get it to the first 2 layers. So now you have 3 loops on your needle. Pick up your yarn, get it to the first 2 loops, pick up your yarn and get it to the second 2 loops, and make a chain. Loop your yarn, bring it into your weft underneath that stitch line. Make sure your hook is in an angle. Pick up the stitch that is underneath without counting. Bring it to the first layers, to the first 2 loops, and chain. Now you can see it's starting to get less fiddly because you're going to get used to what you're doing. In this way, you make your wig completely fitting to this head without even taking notice of how many stitches you are doing. This we are going to get rid of in a later stage, but for now we're going to finish this wig with going round and around in the way I described just now. So, working yarn, weft here, 1 chain made, pick up your yarn, go in your weft wherever you think it's possible. Pick up the stitch that is underneath your hook, go to 2 layers, go to 2 loops and go to 2 loops again and make a chain. Now you need to make sure that you pull your stitches a bit tight, not loose loops, because then the wig would get too big, but try to keep your stitches tight. Okay? In the next row it is even easier. We keep doing the same. It's even easier because now you only have to pick up that chain. So inside between 2 single crochets. So that makes life even easier. And it's going fast. Okay, so now I've finished my wig, and I'm left with 40 centimeters of that 1.5 meter, and I'm going to use this as I will show you later. But now first how I would attach this wig to this doll. I'm not going to do that definitely because I want to over dye it in black or something like that. But suppose that is the way I would go ahead for now. I would take that pin out, and I don't want to sew this edge because I don't like to look at that sock wool edge. Now the way I would do it is I would take a tool, something like this, and then bring it underneath these first loops. I hope you can see it. And I would bring it over, pull on it first upwards, then downwards, as you can see. Downwards, then lay my finger on it and pin it. Now it's gone, and I would go ahead with stitching here. So not here, but here. So that leaves a little bit of hair coming over. Again, I would take my pin out. I would pick up some stitches that are made here. The first line of stitches where I'd used the weft. I would pull it up, pull this inside, pull this down. And now I'm a bit fiddly without an extra hand and in camera. Pin it down and stitch here. That way you won't be able to see this crochet ridge, which I don't like. Okay? Now, once I've done that, I'm going to look at my wig more with an eye of how it is. And you can see when you bring that in, you even will be able, let's do it again. When you bring that ridge in, the hair locks are coming down. That's even a nice side effect. Okay, well, you have to fiddle with it a bit, but you get what I mean. Now, I finished it, but of course, there where we made those double crochets, you can see through it to the head, and the most visible is the first one, of course, because every time a round gets smaller and smaller, it's more covered. Now, that first ridge I like to cover, but you can leave it. I like to cover it. I'm going to take these hairs to the back. I'm going to take these hairs to the front. And I'm going to lay that piece that I was saying that the leftover. And I'm going to lay that like this, so the locks backwards onto that row that is visible. I will lay it on it, and I would start sewing this sock yarn stitch together with the weft. So this would be together with, I will do that with sock yarn, because when I lay these locks backwards, you can see that it lays naturally. Now, if I were to finish this, I would cut the bangs, or I would lay it aside, whatever. This is just roughly how a wig ends, and now you have to do a hairdo, of course. Okay, once you've done that, then you are completely finished, but there is always a little bit of mess in the locks. Now, if I have locks that I want to lay backwards, for instance, which they are not doing, then I would take some hair conditioner. I would split up those thick locks, because these, you see what is becoming, and I would take some hair conditioner and dilute it with a little bit of water, just as much conditioner as water, and then with my hands I would wet this and then shape it so the fuzz is gone, and lay it to the side that I want, and even pin it sometimes, and then leave it to dry so that it is completely in what I want. It is an animal fiber, a protein fiber, just as our hair is, because we're animals too. So hair conditioner will make it a little bit more easy to manipulate. You could use an how do you call that? A curl iron or something like that. So a tool for people to make curls in their hairs. You could use that too, if you want. With this hair, you could do whatever you would do with your own hair, only this is a little bit finer. So you take good care of it and be a bit cautious on what you do with it. But again, with water and somewhat hair conditioner, you can make it into a beautiful wig and end up with something beautiful. Hope you enjoyed it. This is really an awful color. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon.